Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Rangers Reviews morning briefing on Tuesday, the 7th of June. I'm Joshua Barry, joined by Jonny McFarlane. Slightly delayed because you've been tip-tapping away, Jonny, but we are here. So thanks to everyone for joining us a little bit later. You're eager to say something, Jonny. I can see. Go for it.
No, I'm saying
You're not? Oh, okay.
Tip-tapping away.
I thought you were about to interject.
No.
But we'll get to that in a second. Firstly, as ever, we'll just tell you about our sponsors. One Football, as we say every day, the one-stop shop for everything football related. And obviously they support us as well and help to create these videos every day along with our subscribers, which we're very grateful for indeed. So remember to go over there. You can put in all the teams that you follow, whether that's just Rangers, whether you have an English team as well. Particularly important given it is transfer season and there's plenty of rumours and information flying around. So the link is at the top of the description, totally free, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Right, Jonny, let's get straight into it. Just briefly, we're going to talk about an article that you have on the website this morning, which I'm going to put in the comments about CMA ruling on shirt sales and Rangers. If you just want to fill us in about what that is, and I will put the link in the comments.
Yeah, so there's been a ruling now. It should be stressed, Joshua, that it is a preliminary ruling. So it's not actually finalised yet. There is, to quote the CMA themselves, there is no assumption should be made at this stage that any infringement has occurred. But they have provisionally ruled that Rangers, alongside sports retailers Elite and JD Sport, broke competition law by fixing the sale prices of certain club-branded clothing. So that would be, in the case of Rangers, shirts. The findings of the CMA are that Elite and GD Sports fixed the retail prices of a number of Rangers-branded replica kits and other clothing between September 2018 until at least July 2019. Rangers also took part in the alleged collusion, but only to the extent of fixing the retail price of adult home short-sleeved replica shirts from September 2018 to at least mid-November 2018, so roughly a 2-month period there. All three parties allegedly colluded to stop JD Sports from undercutting the retail price of the shirt on Elite's Gers online store. So this is obviously going back to the Hummel strips that were extremely popular after in that period of 2018. It relates to specifically a purchase of around 2,000 shirts from Elite by JD Sports. They wanted to pepper shirts around their stores. JD Sports, obviously one of the biggest sports retailers going. They want to put them through their stores in the UK, but they were initially selling the items for £55 rather than the £60 being charged by Elite, who are, of course, Rangers' partner, essentially, commercial partner, which caused a lot of consternation at the time from fans, wondering, well, why is it £5 cheaper? Long story short, without going into all the details and boring everyone to death, the club basically did not financially benefit from this situation. That's my understanding. And the club are extremely confident. The final ruling in this case will clearly state that there was no financial benefit from Rangers being involved in this. And I think there's confidence that the club will not be, but still have the opportunity to obviously be cleared of any wrongdoing in this matter when it reaches this final stage of assessment. So, listen, it's a complex one, Josh. I spent quite a lot of time in the last wee while going through all the particulars of it to put together this Q&A on the Rangers Review website. So, if you want to know the detail, if you want to know it step by step, what I've done is I've written the piece in a question and answer format. And hopefully when you go through that will keep you really, really up to date with exactly what's happening. And it's packed with information about exactly what's happened, exactly what the CMA position is, exactly what Rangers' position is, and what I've gleaned from discussions with people. So hopefully that will give you a real understanding of what and where this issue has come from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see David here saying, is the deal still on? David, the deal is still on. You do need to subscribe. Good decision. I've posted the link in the description as well. Just £6 for 6 months, and you can get content like this every single day. We have everything on the site from explainers. If you don't understand legal things like me, and people like Jonny can explain it to me. That's very helpful. If you want to read about tactics, big interviews, absolutely everything. So yeah, do go over it, have a look at that, subscribe, and I'm sure you won't regret it. Hit the notification bell on YouTube, and I think that's all I have to say on that front. Right, Jonny, we're going to talk about a couple of different things this morning. We're going to speak about strikers. I've got a scout report up on Mateo Cassiera, who is a Colombian striker that's been linked with Rangers recently. Well, he himself actually responded to links recently. We'll get on to that. I've also seen a couple of comments about midfielders again, which, as you know, I love to talk about. But let's first talk about something that you seen yesterday. Rangers' success in Europe. Now, obviously, we know what happened last season and Rangers' success to get to the final of the Europa League. But that's kind of been the case, overachievement in Europe for a number of years now. What was it, the stat that you seen was Rangers are in the top 10 most successful clubs in Europe competition in the last few years? Is that right?
Yes. So this was something that appeared yesterday afternoon, I think, after we'd initially done the briefing, so we didn't have the time to sort of get into it yesterday. Well, we weren't even probably aware when it dropped at exactly what the situation was. But Rangers, indeed, given the level of performance that they've put in over the last wee while, it's no surprise to see that they are performing so well in that. I'm actually struggling, Joshua, as we speak, to pull up the document. I didn't have it to hand. Have you got the list there? Can we?
No, I don't.
Or can you waffle on while I look for that?
Yeah, I can waffle on. Well, it was absolutely no surprise when you said that. Tell you what, I'm going to waffle on about quickly, Jonny, because I want to get something off my chest, and it is a point that is raised by Holtz, and he's speaking about Billy Gilmour. Would it be an optional loan for us? Now, the thing I want to speak about is I seen quotes from Charlie Nicholas this morning that were mind-boggling, and you know we get these. I think often you see these opinions fly around and whatnot, and you just kind of brush them off. But he was effectively criticising Billy Gilmour. I think the line was, "He'll be the next Barry Bannon," or something like that.
This was Charlie Nicholas that said this.
Yeah, and he was moaning about square passes. Now, what is mental to me is that football obviously changes, and football's different from when Charlie Nicholas was playing. But you look at all the best defensive midfielders in the world. Look at someone like Jorginho, who's obviously the player that Gilmour obviously is kind of emulating or kind of in the mould of at Chelsea. He plays more backwards passes than anyone in football, but it's deliberate, it's opening up, it's intentional. I just couldn't believe that when I seen that this morning. It deflated me at 9 a.m. But then I thought, this is why we need to write more about backwards passes, Jonny.
With respect, I think Charlie Nicholas probably has got to a stage where his opinions on football are, I would say, niche. Not really probably something that anyone with a brain is going to be too interested in hearing, to be honest. And that just kind of sums it up. There's Billy Gilmour, there's no doubt, is an incredible talent. And whether or not he has good seasons, bad seasons, cream always rises to the top. And Billy Gilmour is a top talent. And anyone who's questioning that, talking about back passes, really needs to get a life, to get a grip, and clearly has become a little bit unstuck from where we are in the modern game.
Yeah,
I've just no idea where that's coming from.
It's
that's bizarre.
It's like when Jonny, I don't know if anyone else will have remembered this, and I know we're straying slightly from Rangers, but we will get back. I remember when Man City played Chelsea last year, 1-0 game, De Bruyne scored. And Chelsea were doing what they'd done to win the Champions League, which was, be pretty compact and try and kind of open up City, coax them in. And you'll see Rangers do it at times in Europe where you kind of play short passes and then try and go over the top. And Steve McManaman, is that right?
Yes.
Spent the whole game complaining about Chelsea not going forward from free kicks. And the reason that Chelsea aren't going forward is because they've got to go backwards, because then City come forwards and then there's a space to find Lukaku in behind. I just had to turn the commentary off and you just think, sure, I don't know if these guys maybe don't know that football's changed from when they were playing it. Obviously, they know more about forgotten more about football than I know, whatever the saying is. But I just think it's funny to see how this can happen. This kind of rhetoric can succeed. But anyway, that's my waffle.
A fixed outlook. That's what happens in life. They ossify their outlooks. They're not adaptable. I see it happening to myself in certain circumstances, and it's something that you have to fight against tooth and nail as you get older, because you need to be open to new ideas and new concepts and how things evolve with time, or you get left behind. And unfortunately, so many of the pundits who were great players in their day have been left behind by a failure to adapt and change to the game and how it's changed. And that's why, unfortunately, a lot of these guys are now getting the bullet from their punditry roles, because people watching it just go, especially a young generation who have grown contacts and management and are comfortable and confident with moving players around and know the concepts of football quite well, because they have to live it when they're playing the computer games. I think there's also the factor that people are now watching games from across Europe really comfortably, really easily. Whereas back in the day, you'd be lucky if you got anything outside of Scottish football, maybe a bit of English football. But yeah, it was certainly quite narrow in terms of the focus you were able to have over the larger game. So that's changed it massively. Listen, we could talk about Charlie Nicholas and his daft views all day, but we will move on to this Rangers grid that has put them in this 20-team table. Yeah, very, very high up, earned them a place in the top 10 performing clubs in the continent in the last 5 years. Bayern Munich are top, 19.714 points, scored over a 5-year period. Champions League finalists Liverpool and, of course, Manchester City, who were the Premier League winners, are second and third. But Rangers are sitting in 10th position, behind Real Madrid, Red Star, Chelsea, Salzburg, Ajax, and PSG. But certainly some huge names they are ahead of in that table, mate. Some real big ones. Not least FC Barcelona, Juventus, Roma, Manchester United, Atletico Madrid, Sevilla. So I think that gives you a sense of just how well they have done. And that is based on points scored for the country that you come from by UEFA ranking. Right. So Rangers have scored 17,075. And that's just a remarkable achievement. Given 5 years ago, Rangers were going out to Progress Niederkorn, the third or fourth best team in Luxembourg. Can't remember which one it was, in the first qualifying round of the Europa League. It's an incredible turnaround.
Well, I was watching, which we'll come on to, Jonny, speaking about Cassiera. I was watching some of the Russian league yesterday, and one of the games that I was watching Cassiera in was Ufa away, and it's quite a distinctive stadium. Everyone will remember the kind of the look of it. And you remember that qualifying campaign, and remember Scoopy at home and whatnot. The progress from then is incredible, and obviously it's always not been hampered, but I think there's always been the asterisks of domestic success and back in April, I was looking at some of the stuff we'd done in April about, for example, squad turnover and the success of the season, and football changes so quickly, and if the Scottish Cup hadn't been won, it's such fine margins, which is why we like it, because it's so kind of emotive, and the narrative is always changing. But what I'm trying to say, over the last 4 years, the European success, regardless of the lack of trophies, and even in the Gerrard era, and the lack of the league title last year, is a remarkable achievement. And as John Lundstrom said, I think before the final, that Rangers have been absolutely brilliant for Scottish football in that regard, and he's spot on, because the consistent results they've achieved have been remarkable, and hopefully it continues. Hopefully it's Champions League football the next season, Jonny. That would certainly be that would be good fun. But let's move on to talk about strikers. This is something that I've been thinking about in relation to a couple of links. Matteo Cassiera, who plays his trade in Russia at the moment, 25-year-old forward, has been linked to Rangers, and he himself kind of responded to the links by saying that Van Bronckhorst knew him. He hopes to have his future sorted quite soon. I think that the transfer is unlikely, simply because Rangers will prioritise spending money elsewhere, you'd imagine. But I think Rangers need a striker, Jonny, regardless if Morelos and Roof stay. I think Rangers need a striker. I'm going to post the scout report in the comments, but a little bit of background on Cassiera if you don't know him. 25-year-old striker was signed by Ajax for 5.5 million euros when he was 19, so I think 2016. Came through in Colombia, scored 14 goals in 22 league games in Russia last year, which is, it's not a bad standard of league whatsoever. And the impressive thing for me, Jonny, was he scored 14 league goals from an expected goals of 13.76. So effectively, he's right on the money. He's not overperforming massively. And the reason he's kind of on the money on his XG is because he scores open goals all the time. Now, that might sound simple, but his movement, his connection to crosses is so good. I think something like 6 or 7, about half his goals were actually scored into open goals. And you'll see on the website, if you do go and read that scout report, his shot map and his goal view map is hilarious because all the shots are right down the middle because he's just finishing crosses. Now, if Rangers could get someone like him on a cheap deal, I think they 100% should for 2 reasons. Firstly, you've got 2 real styles of you need more goals in that front line. We discuss that almost every day, but you've got 2 different styles of central striker for me at Rangers. You've got Morelos, who is the best forward there, arguably the best player on his day, and is a bit all action, but can be an erratic finisher at times, and as we know, isn't going to probably score you 25 goals in the Scottish Premiership because his top, I think, is 17 in the last 5 years at Ibrox. You've got Roof, who is probably the best finisher at the club statistically, certainly is, finds the corners, but is injury prone, and there's nothing to suggest that that'll stop, especially as he gets a little bit older. I think Jonny, Rangers need to add someone, whether it is Cassiera or someone in his mould, who can attack crosses, find space in the box really well, which is something Morelos, I think, does quite well at times, but maybe not that consistently in the Scottish Premiership, and can just rack up goals. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. And it's quite funny we're having this conversation because myself and Derek were talking about this last week. And I said what Rangers need is a flat track bully, someone like Chris Boyd, not for the European games. The European games are fine. That's all sorted. We don't have to worry about that. But somebody can come in and score 25 goals and just rack up numbers against the Premiership's less salubrious sides. The ones that are what you would describe as pretty much dross. That they can go out there and put the ball in the back of the net with regularity and get doubles and hat-tricks against the teams in the bottom 3. That's what I'm talking about here. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that, that'll put you in a pretty good stead. Now, again, without going back across the city, I think Celtic have kind of got someone like that in Giakoumakis. Giakoumakis.
Yeah.
He's that kind of player. If you look at his scoring record in Holland, a lot of his goals came against the lesser lights in the league, and I think you're already seeing that in terms of what he's doing in the Premiership here. He's got the physicality to get on the end of crosses, and he's a sort of one-touch finisher. And that's, I think, what Rangers need more than anything. Someone who the ball comes to them and 3 touches, it's just touch. And Jermaine Defoe brought that to quite a large extent when he was at Ibrox. And you could tell if Jermaine Defoe had been 5 years younger, he would have scored 50 goals a season. There's no doubt about it. You saw what he was doing when he was 38, 39. No problem at all. So I think if Rangers can look in the market, Joshua, for someone who's maybe 33, 34, 35, who doesn't mind being switched around for games, who is utilised for certain games, but who is just a natural finisher. Kind of what Van Bronckhorst had at Feyenoord with Dirk Kuyt, and because Dirk Kuyt was right at the end of his career. Yeah. Someone who has got that fox in the box mentality. I don't know if there's anyone like that out there, and the guy that you've mentioned, Cassie, he may be the answer. But I think Rangers need someone like that. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it's the old, not old, but I guess fluctuating argument kind of around fashion Sakala, and I tweeted this out this morning, that sometimes functionality in goals is more important than maybe aesthetic and skill. Can't remember off the top of my head how many goals Sakala scored now last season, but he had the second highest XG per 90, second highest goals per game per 90, I think, in the team. And at times he's a frustrating player, but you're right. Boyd's a great example. I think of the 2008 season, you had, who did you have up front? You had Boyd, Darcheville, Kuzan, and Noble. And they were all kind of rotated in and out for very different, there's different requirements in terms of what Kuzan's going to give you to avoid. But that's what Rangers, for me, haven't done that well in the initial stages under Van Bronckhorst. And I don't think that's the manager's fault. I think that's because he's not had his squad. He's had injuries in key areas. But you look at a front three like Arfield, Kent, and Morelos that starts away in Dortmund and is brilliant because it's got pace in it. Someone like Kent's so good in space. Morelos can isolate defenders. Arfield is pretty, I guess, functional in some ways and an intelligent player. But when you're then going away to St Johnstone and whatever, it's a completely different game. And I think what Rangers need to do, and maybe what they were starting to do a little bit under Gerrard, but maybe again didn't have the squad depth to do, is have players who can just score goals in those games. And I think that's why Sakala, for all his faults, or maybe not faults, for all his unpolished elements of his game, he will just score goals. And Boyd, he scored goals and he scored a lot of them. So for me, I think looking at someone in the market in the forward position would be an intelligent acquisition. And also you need a goal scorer from the right wing area as well. And that's a priority. That's where Rangers need to, I think, go first, because you can't start the season, in my opinion, with kind of Scott Arfield and Scott Wright rotating in that position. I just don't think either of those players have a high enough consistent quality. For Arfield's more at the end of his career. Wright, I think, has done really well to work his way back into the team, but I still don't think he's your first choice right winger. Or that's definitely the priority position. And Kemar Roofe for me is an interesting one, Jonny, because in his first season, he actually had quite a long uninterrupted spell with injury. And you'll remember that we talked about it on the website about the AI Rangers were using, the artificial intelligence kind of injury prevention tools.
Zone 7, yeah.
Zone 7. Now, when Roofe got an injury when he first came into the club, and reading between the lines, when you look at the data that Zone 7 released after the study with Rangers, which I think reduced injuries by about 50%, they said that the only initial injuries were from players who didn't have background data on. So to explain what that means is effectively they take someone like James Tavernier, they had all his training data, all his match data. They know when he'd be overloaded. They know his injury history. Roofe had just come into the club, so they probably didn't have the same access to data available. But after that, you'll remember for almost a large majority, I think, of that season, certainly towards the end of the season when he finished so strongly, Roofe was pretty available. Now, I don't know if last season the change of manager, the change of, obviously Johnny's dipped out there, but I'm in a monologue anyway, the change of manager and the change of maybe coaching staff has impacted Roofe's injury record. That's definitely more theory than anything. But if you can get Roofe to fit, and I guess that's the whole argument about someone like Kemar Roofe's career, but if you can get him to even play 30 games next season, I'm absolutely sure that he'd get you a good goal return. I'm going to go through some of these comments while Jonny dips out. A lot of ones I'm seeing about...
I'm back.
Oh, there you are. I survived. That's fine. I was just about to go through some comments.
No, listen.
Sorry, go on.
Well, no, the one thing that got me going in the comments earlier that I think we should just touch on, Joshua, is this thing that just continues to sort of bubble away in the background, and it's this one, Josh. Right now, yeah. Bear with me. I'm just going to throw it out there. We're just having a bit of fun. It's pre-season, chill out. Now,
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Gareth Bale, he needs to keep himself fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you welcome at Ibrox? Now, you look at the bookies. I think his bookies' favourite destination is Rangers. Would you be positive about this player like Gareth Bale? 5 European Cups.
It's almost even a different discussion to Ramsey, because you're right. Bale is he's one of the best players in the world 5 years ago. Maybe not 5 years ago, maybe 6, 7. I think that final against Atletico Madrid where they won 4-1 in that season, I think he was remarkable. But no, I don't think it'll happen. I mean, I just don't think the experiment really worked for Rangers. Obviously, when you have an opportunity like that, it makes sense to take the gamble. And even think of the money a player like Bale would bring in just in kind of everything outside of the actual pitch. I seen a tweet that said Bale will use his next team as a pure gym for the World Cup. I think that's very true, isn't it? He's and that's what a lot of top teams will do. I think he'll go back to somewhere like, I don't know, where did he come through? Was it Southampton, maybe go to maybe play for Cardiff. Maybe not Championship.
Well, Cardiff are apparently trying to put together a deal for both him and Aaron Ramsey.
Yeah, I think something sentimental like that will happen. I mean, from a serious point of view, I think a signing like Bale, the money that would require it could go so well, but I think you just need to focus on other areas of the squad. But he is a right winger, isn't he?
Joshua, if you're a professional golfer, where better than Scotland?
It's true.
To come and play your part-time gig that is football.
It's true. And it's not impossible. It's not impossible, but I think it's not one that... I think Ramsey was a little bit different. If Ramsey hadn't happened, I think that excitement level would, if it was a potential, would be through the roof. But I think, especially because they're Welsh and their teammates and all these kind of variables, and it's all a bit too similar. So no, I think he'll go somewhere like Cardiff, somewhere sentimental. And you see for Bale, and maybe the same for Ramsey, Wales is his team. You know what I mean? That pure Jim comment is very true, because he isn't going to come in and push himself, I don't think, at a team. I think he's going to use it to get fit and stay sharp and try and go and have a good World Cup run with Wales. But
it's golf, Wales, Real Madrid in that order, isn't it?
And it's hilarious. But 5 European Cups, I mean, it's an absolutely crazy record, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, Bale at his best was absolutely unbelievable.
Super.
And he's still a very, very good player. When he wants to turn it on for Wales, he's still very, very good. Yes, he's not at the level that he was at 3 or 4 years ago when he really was at his best. But, you know, I have to say, if it was possible, I don't think it is. I would still, just the sheer romance of it, and I'm a sucker for these big names. Just the way I am. I was, you know, I remember the Advocat era so fondly when it would be a big name being linked. It was every single weekend. And I know it rarely ever works, and it probably didn't work with Aaron Ramsey in the end. But it is still a certain excitement about a player of that sort of caliber potentially coming to Scotland. But at Real Madrid, he was on 600k a week by all accounts.
Decent.
So it's safe to say that if you're looking at Rangers' wage ceiling of about 40 grand, it's a significant drop, about 6.6% of doing the maths quickly in my head of what he was on. I would imagine he'll be able to go down south and get a much bigger chunk of that 600k paid if he wanted to do that. But you just don't know what a player like Gareth Bale is looking for. It might be that he just wants to stay fit and then retire after the World Cup. And that might be more difficult for him, because clubs might be sort of saying, well, yeah, we don't want to be your pure Jim. We want to have someone who's going to be here for the whole season and going to be contributing for the longer term. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's good fun to talk about, but it's not necessarily one that's very realistic. That said, you know, a 32-year-old Gareth Bale on the right wing, a problem position for Rangers. You know, I can see the appeal, if not the realism behind it.
It'd be a real joke if Rangers still didn't sign a right winger this summer. But one of my presiding memories with Ramsey was the semi-final, where he seemed to just gas himself out after 30 minutes. The intensity of that game, the number of sprints he was asked to do in the middle of the pitch, and football is just so quick these days, I guess. And I don't know if that affects the way that in a slower game of Scottish football, maybe, or old firms are a bit slower, maybe a player like Ramsey would have come in and been able to dictate it a bit more. But I always thought he struggled a little bit to. Obviously, he was getting up to speed. He was getting up to pace.
Yeah. But
you almost have to do it. It seems, watching on, you have to do so much sprinting and so much work to even kind of get on the ball and earn the influence to go and do something with it. So and I'm not surprised there's no more noises about him coming back to Ibrox. I think it's just one of those ones that didn't really work.
Joshua, we always have fans coming on and commenting on your appearance. Normally it's Yanis Hadji lookalike vibes, but today there's a quote here. I just want to see if you actually recognise or understand this reference.
Okay.
From Lauren Campbell saying, Joshua sporting the Rhett Butler look today. Now, do you know what that is in reference to?
No. What is it?
Gone with the Wind, mate.
Don't know. Never heard of it.
Okay, you've not heard of Gone with the Wind?
Nah, I told you, I just watched the football. I'm not a back trust on the films.
Okay,
you know
mate.
I mean?
Okay.
What is it?
It's a 1940s, or I think it was 1939, actually,
1940s.
Hollywood classic about the South and the Civil War. It's probably not very PC by today's standards. Well, I know it's not PC by today's standards, but it was until recently sort of considered one of the great Hollywood melodramas of.
And who is Rhett Butler?
Rhett Butler is the sort of leading romantic lead played by Clark Gable. Anyway, I think we're probably getting a little bit off the topic here.
Last thing
Come on, Johnny, it's 2022. Fair point.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Last thing is someone's asking about Josh time on. Opinions on him. We will have a scout report on him next couple of days, as we will with everything. So if you don't just want to read the same recycled kind of transfer news, but you actually want to read about the player, Rangers Review is your place for that. So head over to the website, subscribe if you haven't. Anything else from your end, Johnny? Happy to call it a day after we've talked about Hollywood and Gareth Bale for the last 10 minutes.
No, nothing to add. Tommy is saying Clark Gable. I may have said Clive Gable or something like that. I'm not sure, but hopefully I didn't. But anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much to everyone who has joined us as ever. We'll be back tomorrow. Remember, you can head over to the website. Some great content for you to read there at the moment. £6 for 6 months. You won't get better bang for your buck, as Derek would say, anywhere else. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.